Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to 2026. Welcome to a new year in 2030 commitment reporting. We are here today to talk about the DDX and do a tutorial, do a walkthrough of various parts and pieces of the DDX, and show you how to input a project. And we will also be answering some questions. This is set up as more of a meeting than a webinar. So if you do have questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we will call on folks and try to help everybody out. Do you want to go to the next slide? Awesome. So I'm Melanie Tacola. I am the director of AIA's two climate pledge programs. So that is the 2030 commitment, which is supported by the DDX Design Data Exchange, as well as the Materials Pledge, which has a separate reporting platform at the moment. And I've been with AIA over 6 years now, in this climate role for a little over a year. And I'm joined today by Andrew, who, if you have ever emailed the 2030 commitment email address, in the last few months, you've been communicating with Andrew. So I don't know if you want to unmute, just say hey.
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here.
And we're also joined by Jacob Werner, who's one of our two co-chairs for the 2030 commitment. And I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. And I'm glad to be here as well.
Great. For folks who've joined us, if you don't mind putting in the chat which firm you're joining from and your name, and whether you are a 2030 signatory or just curious about what we're talking about today, that would be great to get some dialogue going. While we're on this slide, just wanted to call out a few things. The 2030 commitment email is available to anybody with questions. We can help troubleshoot. We also have upcoming open office hours, of which this is just one, and I'll put the link in the chat here. And you can register for any of these. Next, we're going to be talking about the bulk import specifically, how to submit, and then we'll have a kind of general open office session for questions for anybody who wants to join. Just wanted to make a note that we are still fussing with the bulk import spreadsheet a little bit. Should be finished this week, fingers crossed. And we will get into a little bit more details about bulk import in our next session in February. Next. All right. So this is the general mission statement for the 2030 commitment. This is a long-going climate action program for the AIA, and the main one where we're talking about emissions and energy within the built environment, looking towards the year 2030 as our goal. And we are also talking about a refresh, what happens after the year 2030, but more to come on that in the future. Next. So these are the steps to become a signatory and the things that AIA asks of you if you do become a signatory. First is to sign the commitment letter, which needs to be signed by firm CEOs to sign or signal their support for joining the commitment. You upload that through the DDX, and we can show you the spot where some of this happens. The next is to create a sustainability action plan for your firm. Then to kind of match your firm's goals to the 2030 targets of net zero energy. And then we ask all of our signatories to report projects into the DDX, and we'll share some stats about that in a minute. And we also would like firms to update their SAPs regularly. I think it was a 5-year cadence, maybe 3-year that we had asked. Next one. So this is the SAP guidance document. If you use the QR code in the slide here, we can also put a link in the chat. It basically walks through for firms how to set up an SAP, who you need to talk to within your firm, some basic governance support, and then there are some worksheets in there as well. So if your firm does not have an SAP, we really recommend downloading and looking through that. And we also now have one for materials action plan. Next. All right, some 2030 myths and facts that we kind of encounter on a monthly basis when we're going out and talking to folks about the 2030 commitment. So maybe it's perception, maybe it's not a myth that the DDX takes too much time to report. Perception can be reality, but I'm going to walk through today the very, very basics of what you need to do to report. And honestly, it should take you 15 to 20 minutes to set up your company and do one project. When you're starting to report multiple projects, you're from a larger firm, yes, it does start to take some time. The bulk import spreadsheet can help with that. But we do want to acknowledge it does take some time, but we can definitely help you if you have questions. That's what we're here for. We do not require just the high performance projects to be reported. We really want to understand the full range of what's going on out in the industry. It's really useful to us as the AIA, and it's useful in our reports to really have a good understanding of what's going on out in the world in a broader scope. So we encourage firms to report as many projects as are eligible, but also balance that with your own kind of bandwidth. And as noted here, projects do not need to be complete in order for you to submit them. We have a phased approach where you can report by phase for different reporting years. Next. So this is a chart that we share. It's also in our reports, the by the numbers reports, showing our signatory growth. And this was as of the end of reporting last year. So I think we're up to 1,480 signatory firms at the moment. We'll see if we can probably cross the 1,500 mark this year. We'll see. But just wanted to note that where we're struggling, as you can see from this graph, is to get firms reporting their actual data. So we are trying some new outreach this year, trying to re-engage some firms who reported in the past and really boost these numbers for RY25. Next. Great. Yeah, this is basically what we call our blue sky graphic. This is an overview of data from the previous reporting year. I'm not going to get into too much detail here, but this is more to show you the scope of the amount of projects that are in the DDX and amount of projects that are reported year by year. So we had a record number of projects reported for RY24. 41,000 projects was by far the most we've ever had reported. We did have a slight decrease in the number of firms that reported, but we had also a record in the 56% PEUI reduction, which last year was about 50%. So we are making some progress. We had a 6-point jump in our reductions, but we are nowhere near the kind of 100% reduction, which the 2030 commitment would require. And then with energy modeling, we're seeing some flattening there, but some increase in net zero energy projects and renewable energy. Next. All right, so this references some of the stats in the previous slide. So you can see that jump kind of represented here from 2023 to 2024, but it's still not curving up quite as much as we would like. And we're thinking about how to tell some stories around wins this year, try to inspire firms a little bit, and continue on the path of reducing EUIs. Next. All right. So how to track. The DDX is your source of all data input to the 2030 commitment, and we will be walking through that in a moment to show you more details and how to kind of do some basic maintenance on your account if you already have one, If you don't, we can share the link to sign up, and just note that your CEO will have to sign a letter. So it's good to give people the heads up beforehand if you're brand new and have never signed on before. Next. So these are the different ways that you can input data to the DDX. We're going to be going through the direct data input on the left here because it's better for folks who have never used the DDX, and I can walk you through various different fields. The future session, we will go through the bulk data upload. This is a very large spreadsheet with lots and lots of columns. It's another way for firms who have many, many projects to just kind of bulk batch upload their data to the DDX for reporting purposes. And then if you're doing energy modeling, really encourage firms to report via API connection. All the largest energy modeling software have connections. And if you have questions about that, we can certainly provide more details. Great. So I'm going to turn it over to Andrew to go through some resources.
Hey, everyone. As Melly already noted, obviously we have the 2030 commitment email. You are welcome to email that whenever you would like. If you have any questions or if you've noticed any bugs, we have a team supporting us. So please do report any issues that you are experiencing as soon as possible, and we will troubleshoot it and then, resolve it and then get back to you as soon as possible. Along with that, with our programmers, we are constantly making updates to, improve the user interface and the experience. We are updating once changes are made to, a process or any of the steps to actually, upload data or even, log in, all the kind of administrative parts of the DDX as well. We provide help guidance through Confluence, but I can share the link with you just so you can have this wiki page whenever you need it. So it's already, if you go to the left side of the help page, there's a drop down for both the COPE Top 10 and the 2030 commitment. For the purposes of this session, we are just interested in the 2030 commitment ones, and it's completely organized by topic. So again, if you can't find what you're looking for, please do, oops, my computer's glitchy. Please do reach out as soon as possible, and we're happy to help you. And, if you also want to, be kept up to date on any of the updates, we obviously announce, events like webinars like this through our peer-to-peer network. So if you, use the QR code, and after I turn off my mic, I will also post the link in the chat. Please use our community hub. If you have not created an account, please do so. But if you already have a community hub account, you go in into the community home, and from the list of communities, there are a plethora, including one for Materials Pledge, but also, of course, our AII 2030 peer-to-peer network. In there, we have discussions, so you can pose one of your own, and members can engage with you. We have obviously guest posts from our working group members, our 2030 commitment working group members. Really insightful, resources are also uploaded here onto the library. So yeah, you see here, I think we have a pretty large amount of members from this one, wherever the screenshot was taken. But yeah, you do have a really good community that you can engage with on the peer-to-peer network, and you can actually pose questions if you are needing any help from your peers during the reporting period. Um, we have a YouTube channel. You can watch recordings of all of our webinars, including this one. If you've missed anything or you're unable to make any of our future webinars, we'll have all of them uploaded on our 2030 Commitment AIA YouTube page. So please do engage with that. And as I've already posted in the chat, you can find all of our most recent and our past by the numbers reports um, online. So please do take a look at that. Obviously, you'll be working on the data collection at the end of this reporting period and preparing our next year's very soon. So yeah, if you haven't had the opportunity, please do check out our most recent report from reporting year 24. And we have more recently updated our 2030 AIAU series, certification series. So within this, we have a AIU by the numbers deep dive webinar that's available online. Oh, sorry, this is just the webinar one for the by the numbers. Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, sorry. On our on AIAU, we actually after the publication of the last by the numbers report, we are fortunate to have Aaron, Daniel, and Jesse present on our by the by the numbers report. So you can gain credits for this if you go to AIAU. We'll put the link in the chat as well. You can watch that entire webinar there. So please do check that out after reading the report or before, whatever you would like.
All right, so we are going to do a demonstration of how to set up a new project, and I'll call out a few different areas of the DDX. Any general questions before we jump into that about the commitment itself? And we'll keep adding links to the chat as well of all the resources that we just referenced. All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Great. All right. So I am going to walk through a few different things here. I wanted to start on the help pages actually that Andrew was just referencing to show you a couple of things before jumping into the DDX. This is our open office hour schedule. You can see we are here today, January 14th, walking through the DDX. These are the future sessions. You can register through these links. It'll take you to the Zoom page. And then, as mentioned, there are YouTube videos for each one of our previous webinars, and you can see them here. And there's even more than this. This was just what was talked about last year, as well as overviews. All of these open up. They have extra things in here, so be sure to check these out. We do an update every single year on what's new in the DDX. This is a great place to check if you're new, just to what may have been added in the last year. But there's plenty of content in here. All right, here is the peer-to-peer network. This is just kind of what it looks like. We can post, we can share resources this way, and you should get an email that's associated when you sign up, and you'll get a digest of the recent posts. Okay, jumping into the DDX proper here. So I have already logged in. I will note that in order to get to the signatory directory, that's on the main homepage, so it does require logging back out. If anybody would like to see that, I can definitely show you where it is and how it works. We also share sustainability action plans. There's a link in the directory, so let me know if you'd like to see that after I walk through a few things. But this is the basic tabs that you'll see when you log into your account: portfolio, company, 2030 commitment, and then brand new as of November of last year, there's a COTE Top 10 tab as well. This is for the awards. This is if you're submitting an award for the COTE Top 10. This is not required for 2030 commitment reporting. You can disregard that. You'll also see COTE Top 10 buttons here. If you're curious, you can click on those. You do not need to engage with them for 2030 specifically. So this is the main portfolio page. You can edit things here. You can export your projects. And that's basically it for this page itself. The company page has a bit more information. This is sort of the home page for your firm. Has some information about your firm itself, company size. This is how you know the admin for your account. So we ask folks to keep this updated as best as possible. This is how we coordinate with our signatories and send out emails, so that we need that to be updated and correct. Signatory, this is where the commitment letters live. If you ever need to re-upload something, you can hit the edit button here. And then our sustainability action plan section, you can delete the one that's up there. If you need to update it, you can edit it. You can replace it as well. And there's an edit button here if you need to update any of this information. Scrolling down quickly, just want to call out a few things. This is the import section. This is where the bulk upload spreadsheet lives, and it's also where you can download the template for the next year. Export, again, is your company's projects. We have added a reporting year export as of this reporting cycle, which is really helpful if you just want to do a subset of your projects. And then you can create a project from here. This is a list of your projects. There are options here for a bit more information on each side. You can edit, you can delete, you can add a collaborator from this page. Scrolling down. Offices and studios. If you have multiple studios, please do add them and try to keep this up to date as best as possible. And then employees, you can always check on whether someone is an employee here or an administrator. The administrators have an extra function, which I'll show you, which is the submit portfolio function. An employee is not able to submit a portfolio. And I believe that's the main difference. But you can add employees here. The admins have ability to do that. And scrolling down, here's an API request log if you want to connect via API and generate a key. 2030 resources, this is throughout the whole DDX. Everybody has this as soon as they set up an account. A welcome kit and action plan guidance. And then once you report, this will be populated at the bottom of your company page, and your badge is here as well. 2030 commitment page specifically, this is a new tab. Basically repeats your projects that you have, but you can come to this page and it will delete the coat button. So if you just want to focus on your 2030 projects, you can come to the 2030 tab and access your projects that way. I'm not going to get into the research and the reports tab during this call. We can touch on those in a future call, or if people have questions and we have some time at the end, we can do that as well. But I did want to show you how to set up a project and make sure we walk through that process. So from this page or the company page, you can create a new project. You can also search, and you can also add columns and do some sorting in your own projects. Wanted to call that out. Reporting year is usually the one I use the most to just see where my latest projects are. Okay, so let's go ahead and start a project. I'm going to do January 2026 test, just so I know for my own sake. You can name this anything you want. Firms can set up their own nomenclature for this. The thing that's important and the thing that gets auto-populated is the project number. I'm going to say active. I'm going to skip over the project number that will already be filled in. I'm going to say full building, new construction, Washington, D.C. So once I fill this out, you'll see the climate zone also populates here. So you can actually kind of skip that step 2. And then scroll down to District of Columbia. And then units is not the units in the building, it is your measurement units. So you'll notice once you finish doing your required input, this button will become green. That's how you know you've completed. And you also have this step 1 of 3. All right, next, this is still basic project information. And I'm just making stuff up here just to show you for presentation's sake. So anything with an asterisk is required. The asterisk is very small, apologies for that. But as you can see, some of these fields do not have an asterisk. You do not have to fill them out. So fill out what you have information for. Some places you'll see a link to the DDX help pages. That'll take you right to the page I showed you before. And then here's where we start to get into our use types. Just gonna pick office here. And you'll get little warnings. So this is our sort of data quality to try to reduce the number of errors we get in our data. At various stages, when you're going through and entering information, you'll get these little red pop-ups. So once I do this, it'll take a moment to think, and then it will give you a baseline EUI. And there's a little explanation here on how it comes up with that. You can also override. You can do a custom if you have a custom, or if your firm has a custom baseline for your projects, you can override the suggested DDX. We can go save and continue. And this is a kind of interim dashboard. So you'll see your 2030 project target for RY25 is an EUI or KBTU of 9.8, which is very low on purpose, as we're only a few years out of the year 2030. You can also set your own target if you have one, and it'll display your energy savings. This number is very important, and it's what we use to do a lot of our data analysis. So this is the initial stage. That's all you have to do for that part. And there's basically one more step. So this is what we call kind of our dashboard. This is the project dashboard. And you will get this red bar saying your design progress is not complete. That is the only next step you have to do to set up a project. But I'll just show you some elements here. You have a little comparison against your own firm, against similar projects. You have your project information. If you need to edit that, you can go to the little edit button. If you need to add a use type, you can go here, add a use type, subtract one. You can have multiple use types as part of one project. You can edit your targets. This is new for RY25. We've had post-occupancy before, but we did not have the Energy Star Portfolio Manager link. If you have an Energy Star building and you know your ID, you can connect to the AIA account, and there's information on how to do that on the help pages. And then once you get connected, you can create a link so that you can bring in automatically your post-occupancy data directly, or you can add your own. Design data, that's what we're going to do next. Just wanted to call out that you can also add a collaborator. As long as this person has an account in the DDX, you can add a collaborator and they will be able to see this project. All right. So there's a few different ways you can add data. You could use that add design data, or you can do track data here. And you'll see it auto-populated at the concept phase, the first phase that we allow for reporting, and then it auto-populates to the current year. So we are in reporting year 2025 because we're looking back at last year's data. So I can just change the phase here. And basically, this is all you have to do. You are done setting up your project. We can walk through some of these other design data inputs, and we can do that in a second, but I basically just want to call out that this is considered to be a project that's set up and ready to report for your reporting year. So hopefully that takes 15 minutes, 10 minutes if you've got an account already set up. So hopefully that is manageable. I'm just going to open the chat here real quick. Okay, cool. So let me just quickly show you some of the details in the design data that we did not walk through yet, and then we can open up for questions. So going back into the track data, this is the only page where we have all these other options. So it's kind of the project setup, the dashboard, and then the design data page. So this project is active. If you're doing energy modeling, there's little write-ups for each of these sections. You can open this up. You can add your date that it was energy modeled. You can add your tools. These are all drop downs. You can, and it'll give you a little warning that it can't be empty. You can add your party. The energy cost is not required. If you have even more information, you can get into the fuel source section where you can actually add fuel sources for each one of your sources in your building. And it will automatically update your net EUI here. That's a little bit more advanced. We do suggest that people do this if they have the information. It's something we do track, and we're starting to track more. I'm going to turn these back off again. Renewable energy sources, you can select here, multiples, yes or no, renewable energy purchase time, type. Again, everything can be turned off and then on again. Lighting power density, if you have this, you don't need to do this. It's more applicable for interiors projects, just one field here. Embodied carbon. So this is the section that we've done the most work on in the last year. If you've logged in previously, this section is completely different this year. We connect you to the help pages for more information, and we're continuing to update those, but similar setup to the fuel sources, or yeah, the energy modeling before you get to the fuel sources. You've got your modeling year, you've got your project area. Want to call out, this is in square meters. So this is a different project area than you're putting in square feet for your operational energy side. This is the one place where we're asking for square meters, and that is because of the GWP calculation. It is a square meters based calculation, and we didn't want to deviate from that. Your tool, again, another drop down, tool version if you have it, phase of project, time, modeling party, similar to the energy modeling, construction type, stories above, below grade, and the height of building in feet. This is to align with the ECHO schema. And then we have a table here where you can input data for whatever you might have, and it will calculate your total. And then once you put in the meter squared, it will give you a GWP intensity. If you do not want to fill out the table, or you don't have the data yet, you can do an override and you can add your own intensity score total here, and it will gray out the table. You can no longer input any data here. Reduction strategies. This is a field where we can add in your actual strategies in sentence form. We are going to start to look at these and think about what kind of project stories we can tell. And then biogenic carbon is also in alignment with the ECHO schema. And finally, window to wall ratio. This we don't use too much, although people do track it. And you can see down here, this is grayed out now because it's telling you have some fields that you have not filled out. So you can go back and check those. Or if you decide this is too much, I don't want to get into all this, you can simply turn it off and it'll go back to being green. All right. And just to show you once again, so I called this January 2026 test. Sometimes you've got to sort these a few times, and here it is, January 2026 test. And as you get further along, you'll get these other options as well. A gray button tells you that the project is complete. And a yellow button is, I think it's in your final stages, the final phase of a project. Just kind of a warning. All right, I just did a lot of talking. Any questions from the group? Anything you would like to see within the DDX? Problems you might be encountering? Anything we can help you with? Got some architects on the line who can help as well.
We had a request to actually see the signatory directory, Melanie.
Okay, can do that for sure. So Leslie Nope is just our little tester. Oh, also you can get to the help pages via this little question mark here. I'm gonna log out. This is the home page. So before you've ever set up an account, you'll see this. And then once you do, you can reset your password, you can create an account. And then this is where the signatory directory lives. And this is what it looks like. So here is the SAP Dropbox library. If you're needing inspiration, you want to redo your SAP or you don't have one, this will take you to our Dropbox and you can search. You can search by firm size. So I am logged in. It'll look a little bit different for you, but you can still go in and check out everybody's SAPs. In the directory, you can sort, you can search, you can look at who's in your state, you can look at who's in your country. There are some links to some other resources, connect with the team. This AIU certificate course needs to be updated. This goes to an old link, but we will do that shortly. And just scrolling down, you can go through. So this is the 1480 number I was just mentioning. So there are 1480 signatories as of today. Anything else I want to call out here? We do have a check mark next to firms that have uploaded an SAP. And then this top reporting firm is something we instituted last year just to kind of call out our firms who are reporting regularly. So you see 100% would be if a firm signed on in 2020 and they've reported every year since, then they would get 100%. And then back to the help pages. So yeah, that's the directory.
Great. We had a question from Margaret. When reporting for 2025, is it important to report on projects that are complete, or do you really want in-progress projects too?
Yeah, great question. So we want in-progress projects. We want projects that are pretty much in every phase from concept to finished. So in comparison to the materials pledge, where we're only asking for projects that are hit the CD phase, we want every phase of project. And I'm going to show. There are columns for the phase, I believe. No, now I'm not seeing it. Anyway, you can go into project, track data. We basically are looking for anything that's concept to CA. Another question. How do you all recommend managing campus complex style projects? Excellent question with multiple buildings. I say Jacob smiling there. So we have basically recommended that you do the multiple buildings separately as separate projects. We know not all firms do this, but that's our recommendation, is to have each project as a separate entry. Jacob, do you want to add to that?
Exactly. Yeah, basically it should align with the permit for the structure. In reality, it's a better match to if you're going to energy model, or if you have an energy system that's delivering to a particular structure. set of enclosed space. That's really what the DDX is tracking. It's tracking conditioned area and the systems associated with that conditioned area. So for example, we customarily will use the square footage from our energy model if we have an energy model rather than the measured square footage that we might report as architects, because the square footage of the energy model is what it corresponds to the energy units that you would input into the data. So think about it that way, as like an envelope of interior space. That's a project um, within the DDX.
Yeah, that's great. And we've had questions before about whether to include parking structures. We generally don't recommend doing parking structures unless they're conditioned for some reason. Mainly the DDX is for conditioned buildings, except for that one area of embodied carbon where we're asking for a new square meters, and that's to account for unconditioned space because it's such an issue with embodied carbon. It is not an issue with operational.
There's a lot of complexity to this particular subject, and if you ever have a question, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll help you with it.
Yep.
Great. Another question. I'm taking over for somebody who's no longer at my firm, who used to do the reporting. When I submit a portfolio, is there a method to ensure that I'm not resubmitting prior year's projects?
Yes. So there's a few different ways to kind of get ahead of that issue. So number one, I recommend you do a sort for your entire company's projects on the company tab and just look at the reporting year for each one. If there's something that looks like it's either got updated to 2025 and shouldn't have been, you can go back in and change the reporting year in that phase and reporting year section that I was showing, or you could delete it, or you can put it on hold, which you don't appear to be able to do from this page. I thought you could do that here. You can also put it on hold here. I'll give you a little update. That will take it out of reporting for the next year. Sometimes I gotta resort these columns here. The other thing, when you're going to your submit portfolio page, I'll just show that. You're always submitting for the most recent year. You'll get a warning if you've done it in the past. You can completely override that. So I won't be able to show you exactly what pops up, but basically you'll get a list of the okay, here it is. The list of the projects for reporting year. If something in here is not applicable, you want to remove it, you just click it off. And then once you've checked this, double check this, you hit the confirm button, and then you continue to the submit page. So you can do it in the company tab, or you can do it here.
Question about should we be reporting all firm projects? It's a question we get a lot. Or is there a threshold for projects that get reported?
Yeah, so use your best judgment. If you feel like a project is just not ready, not far enough along, or it's going to take too much time to collect the data, leave it out. But generally, we want all of your projects, and there is a square footage, a minimum square footage. I think it's 100 square feet. Don't quote me on that. I hope it'll give you the warning if you try to set up a project that's too small in the square footage dialog box. But basically we want everybody to submit their full portfolio as best as possible.
So in prior years, I might have said something like, we're really looking for projects that use energy. So if you have a canopy or
Good point.
some sort of shed that has no power or something, which is unusual, but you could have excluded it. Now we are interested in embodied carbon. So you're welcome to
Right.
give us embodied carbon data, even on those projects that have no energy use. But the main force and focus of the DDX continues to be um, operational carbon emissions and energy use associated leading up to carbon emissions. So um, try to include any project that has any energy use, whether that be um, kilobtus per square foot per year of whole building energy use, or whether it just be the lighting power density of interior projects. We're looking for all of it. The rule of thumb that we use as a firm is if it's a study and it hasn't really turned into a real design project yet, we don't include it. If it's like some kind of master plan or programming or peer review or some other thing that's not a real project, we don't include that. But anything that's a real project goes into the database, and we're very rigorous about it. And it's often painful to get information on some of the smaller projects, and we just bite the bullet and do it.
Next question, essentially, how do I ensure the projects I want to report are tagged 2025? And is it okay to resubmit a project if it has been updated since the prior year? I guess it's a question about phasing as well.
Yeah. Yes, definitely resubmits for every year between that concept and CA phase. Most people are submitting year after year after year. They're updating their data and they're resubmitting on their projects. And that's kind of how they're tracking improvements, and we are tracking the overall trends for the profession. And then ensuring projects are tagged with the 2025, basically, it's when you get to that design data phase, track design, reporting year. So this is where you designate which year. And I've noticed that the DDX will automatically, when we switched over into January, it added 2026. I mean, that won't be until next year, so ignore that. It'll auto-populate to 2025 for a new project.
I wonder if the question was about like submitting the whole portfolio or if it was just about the phase like you just described, like what's included with the submission of the whole portfolio when you go to submit it for 2025.
Well, anything tagged as 2025 would be included in that list. So if something looks like it's missing, you may need to go back in and change the reporting year to 2025.
If you
Also,
had a project that was in construction for multiple years,
yeah,
you
you can also duplicate here. And you can also check your reporting year in the design data phase. Make sure you
so you'd
have
want to
an entry for the latest year.
so you'd want to have if this project was also in construction in 26, you'd want to have one row for 2025 construction and
Yep,
another row that's a duplicate with 2026. And
exactly.
many people may have that for various projects. We often have design development that goes from the fall of one year to the spring of another, and we have end up with two design development line items because it's in there twice. And if you end up at the end of the year in another phase, you don't have to do that. But if you are still in that phase at the end of the year, then you would continue it by duplicating it. Construction administration is the most common thing where you'd end up with multiple years of reporting.
Margaret had a follow-up question. So
Yes.
if the
So
data
even
doesn't
if
change, yeah.
data doesn't change, yes, you just resubmit for the next year. Yep. Great question here about energy modeling tools and troubleshooting with API issues. Yes. We have been in close touch with a few energy modeling tools. Just to be candid, Autodesk is one of the ones that we're working with. We are in touch with their developers. Going back to the help page, sorry. There is an importing from energy modeling software. So if you're a software company, you can go in here and look at the documentation. These are the tools that we are currently working with or who have connected to the API. There's a bunch of documentation in here that is way over my head, frankly. And we will be updating this as we add embodied carbon data to our API connection as well. But that being said, if I can't verify that everything has been updated by all those energy modelers. So if you're working with a company and it's not DDX connection is not working, send them to us and we can help them troubleshoot.
Follow-up question from Margaret. We are reporting for 2025. Does that mean the project updates between January 1st and March 31st should be excluded? Or would a new project that entered the concept phase today be included in the 2025 report?
So we are only looking at project data from last year. So anything from January to March of this year would go in next year's submission. So January 1st, 2025 to December 31st of 2025 should be included. If we have anything that's in 2026, it would not be included. Or am I conflating two issues here? I think that's what she's asking.
Yeah, that does.
Okay, great. Yep, and that just makes it simpler is that we have a start and an end date that it coincides with the calendar year. And we're not trying to do multiple years at the same time.
No other questions.
Got about 5 more minutes. If anybody wants to unmute and ask a question or raise your hand, go for it. Otherwise, we can end a couple minutes early.
You have questions as you're reporting who's best to ask us. I can drop the 2030 email in the chat. Feel free to email us at any time. Happy to. And if you want the architect's perspective, our working group members are happy to also field those questions.
So we've got some energy modeling experts, some mechanical engineers on our 2030 working group. We've got architects from various different disciplines. So we can always connect you with the right person to get